Okay, hi, how's it going? Again, this is Eric Edwards with Got Dogs, gotdogs.com. Got is with G-O-T-T, stands for God Dogs if you look up the German translation of Got, and that's because we specialize in protective type pets that protect, okay? But today we're going to talk about training basic obedience concepts, the different ways that you can train obedience, and how to set a firm foundation for it. So one is that you want to do positive training. I mean, that's one way of training obedience. Positive training is done with clickers, treats. That's basically what it comes down to. Now, what you're doing with the clicker, right, is you're just trying to set a marker that tells the dog, good, I like what you're doing. And then you can use your voice along with it. Good boy, whatever that you want to do. Good girl, give them a pat on the head. You don't want to overdo it to the point that the dog views it as an invitation to start playing, though. You want them to take it seriously. Another thing is, before you start a training session, a lot of the times it's best to, and forgive me for all you soft hearts out there, but best to kennel the dog for an hour or so. Then when you get them out, they're excited to want to do something. You engage in the session, and they're fully engaged because they haven't got to run around and do whatever the hell they wanted to do for most of the day. So with positive training, this is mostly based on Pavlov's dogs. If you're familiar with that, it was a guy that would basically get food, and then he would get a bell. He would ring the bell when he gave the dogs the food. The dogs would start to salivate, of course, when they saw the food, and it's an involuntary reaction, and then he rings the bell. Well, that creates a mental association between the bell and the food. Eventually, he'd take the food away, he would just ring the bell, the dogs would salivate, right? And so the same thing happens with a clicker and food, is you're giving a mental association to the reward, okay? I haven't actually used a lot of clicker training with this dog. It was down here. I did a little bit initially. I find that rewards like balls and stuff like that are great. Another thing is, in the beginning, to get the respect and establish some subtle dominance, you may need to use leash corrections or a collar, an e-collar on a low setting, that sort of thing. One thing I want to emphasize with the leash correction is that it needs to be done properly. Some people will have a choke chain on their dog doesn't do what they want it to do, and they lift up on the chain and they're holding the dog there like they're choking it. That is not a proper leash correction. It's abusive. And so what you want to do instead, the dog doesn't do something, and you want to know that the dog knows the command. You never correct something until you know the dog knows the command. But you quickly, just pop it and say no or whatever. You don't want to jerk the dog like this and lift it off its feet. You don't want to hold it up, off of its feet. That's not necessary to correct a dog when you're trying to teach obedience. One thing you can do to set a really firm foundation for your obedience is to get a really long leash, right? Put a choke collar or a prong collar on them. Oh God, I know I'm gonna get crucified for this, but then let the dog walk out as far as they want to, right? Just not paying any attention to you, and make some sudden turning movements, which will pull on the dog, and they'll realize they're not paying attention. But, and the next thing you know, they're coming right back to your side. After you do that for a few days in a row, and you don't look at the dog at all, you don't give them any commands, you just walk and then turn, right? You won't be able to invent a game not to get the dog to pay attention. And attention is the number one thing in obedience. If the dog's paying attention to you, it's much easier to get them to obey. So now we're just going to go over a couple of basic commands that you can teach your dog. I'm using a ball here. I'll use the clicker just for illustration purposes, but anyway. Obviously, Max, come here. Good boy. So a lot of the time I snap. I don't know. It's just kind of my thing sometimes. But Max, sit. Good boy. All right. So I probably should have went click, but I don't really use this much anymore. So anyhow, also, so when teaching sit, you want to take the object or whatever it is. Like, watch, I'm not going to say anything to him. Stand close. Max, look at me. And you see how it's going over his head? Because he's forced to kind of look up, that's going to be his default nature, is to sit. So a lot of the time you want to get the behavior and then apply a word to it. Now you can also, that's a good boy, Max. And again, that wasn't quick afterwards. He knows these commands. I'm just teaching you. So Now you can, what Kohler said in his book, and I don't like Kohler too much, but he did know dogs, he trained the Disney dogs and the military dogs, was that if the dog's not obeying the command, you could firmly, press down on his back while you're giving the command, make the dog a little uncomfortable so that he realizes what you want from him. But for the most part, if you have some food or something, or a ball that they want, and you move it back over their head, and this back over their head or towards them, you're stepping towards the dog, invading their space, putting this back over their head, they're going to sit just because they have to look at the ball or look at the treat or whatever it is that they want, okay? So that's how you teach a sit command. It's probably one of the most important commands that there is, even though it seems crazy. Now, with him, I'll even practice it, and this is something you can do. I'll be running with him in a full sprint, and I'll say sit in the middle of the sprint, and whoop, he'll sit, bam, middle of the sprint, skid his butt across the grass, right? And when you can get that, then you know you've done a really good job instilling the command. That's a good boy. Max, give me a paw. Good boy. All right, so down, that's kind of the other basic command, right? So, all right. You never really want to teach down from a sit position. And the reason for that is because you don't want to have to go sit and then down, right? You just want to be able to, come here, Max. Come here. You just want to be able to go, Max, down. All right? So he just went down. You don't want to have to go, Max, sit, and then down. Max, up. Good boy. All right, so you just, as far as down is concerned, at first, the easiest thing to do is just to get them to follow your hand, just kind of like you did for the sit. Follow you down, right? So you're going down and you're getting them to follow this. And then if they kind of bend over but don't go all the way down, then move the ball or whatever it is, treat a little bit further out from them so that they have to kind of stretch to get it. And then once you get the behavior, then give it a name. Down. Okay, good. Most people, though, they're going to do sit and then they're going to do down, right? And so it's smarter, though, to never teach it from that. You just want to teach down on its own, not from a sit position, okay? So the other basic command that everybody wants to teach their dog is to shake or give paw or whatever, right? So Max, sit, give me paw. Good boy, right? And of course, give paw is a useless exercise, really, unless you're trying to do it to trim their nails or something. But it's a great way to teach the dog how to learn, right? So sit, give him paw. Good boy, right? The way that you want to teach that, I mean, some dogs, with him, it was complicated, for sure. But one of the main ways, sit, is to put your hand on that little joint that's like right here, okay? I don't know if you can see that, but put your hand on that joint and kind of push it forward, and then you tell them, give me a ball or whatever. And hold the treat. Don't give it to them because they're giving you other behaviors that you want. You want to make them think their way through the problem. So, Max it. And then give me a paw. So he's going to get out there and give it to me quick, but right on that joint where the elbow joint is or whatever you want to call it, just lift up on it and kind of come forward, say give me paw. They'll get it. Eventually they'll be giving you paw all day like it's no problem. So those are a few of the basics on training. These are really pretty easy things to teach your dog, but the main thing is you want to make sure that you have a firm foundation and pick a method and then stick to it. You can also do balance training. I mean, you could have treats and a ball and rewards, and then also use some sort of a correction, like a leash correction or an e-collar or something like that. But one thing is, please do not turn the e-collar up too high, because I've seen a lot of dogs get screwed up from that, him included. When I first got him, the previous person who had him had overused an e-collar. I put the e-collar on him, and this dog is a confident go-getter. I mean, he's a strong protection type dog. I put the e-collar on him, and he ran and hid from me in the closet. So since then, I decided I wasn't going to use an e-collar with him, and so I used a prong collar to correct him, and I used, you know, positive treats and stuff to reinforce it along with my voice. There's a lot of other commands we can go over in future videos. Place, for example, you know, which is telling the dog to go get on something or a bed or something and stay there, right? You know, go to your house, all these different things. But the main thing is you want to have a firm foundation. So start off with that long line, walk the dog, teach it to heel, walking right next to you, looking for your leg, right? And then all this other stuff, once you've gotten the dog's attention, becomes very, very easy to do, okay? That's about it. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the video.